Okay, I think this is the only way I can share the sound of my screen. I was testing this yesterday because I had to ensure that you guys could hear Ultravox. So I'm just using the default voice, which is Mark, and let's click on the start button.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hi, Ultravox. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. What's your name, by the way?
Well, my name is Bruno, and I'm actually doing a demo about you. So can you please present yourself to the audience?
Nice to meet you, Bruno. I'm a friendly chatbot and I'm here to have a casual conversation with you and your audience. I'm built on a model called Ultravox, which is pretty cool because it's fast, cheap, and can understand speech directly. But enough about that. What brings you here today, Bruno? What's your company and how did you hear about me?
I'd rather not say that if that's okay, but I'd like to know how you compare with other speech solutions.
No worries, Bruno. I'm built on open source tech and I'm pretty
Oh,
proud of
open
how
source. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a perk, and it makes me super affordable, only 5 cents a minute. But hey, enough about me. What do you think you might use me for, Bruno? Got any interesting projects or ideas?
Actually, can you speak other languages? Se eu mudar para português, tu também consegues falar comigo, por exemplo?
Sim, consigo falar com você em português. Não há problema. Posso adaptar-me às suas necessidades linguísticas. Como você está achando a nossa conversa até agora, Bruno?
Yeah, okay, that's it. That's it. I just wanted to see if you could do it. Thanks. That's all.
De nada, Bruno. Foi um prazer conversar com você, mesmo que tenha sido breve. Se precisar de mais alguma coisa, não hesite em entrar em contato. Até logo.
Okay, so this is Ultravox in action. And now I'll stop this screen and I'll share some slides. Let me just, okay. So my idea is, well, first of all, show you what Ultravox is, because I mean it's really easy to see a demo and understand what it can do. Next, which is this part, I'm going to show you some slides and go to some details, not very low level, more high level details about what Ultravox can do. And then we'll move on to the cool part, which is essentially a hands-on for you to see how you can use Ultravox in your projects. Okay. Okay, so like you've seen, Ultravox is a speech language model that can process speech directly, that is, without the conversion to text. And as you could see as well from the demo, it has some nice features. The first one that I think you saw, it's tool calling. So those parts in which it was trying to extract my name, to extract my use case and everything, that tab on the right, it was so it can perform tool calling by extracting those parameters. And you can apply this to any use case you like. So for example, if you want to check the billing information about a user, you might just extract the text number from the user's voice, so you can use it to invoke your API or to search your database. It's also multilingual. I can only speak in Portuguese and in English, but I think it supports around 42 languages since the last update, which was around February. So you can speak with it in a lot of languages. It also deals with interruptions. I don't know if you noticed, but when it was saying it was built on open source stack, I just interrupted it saying that open source, it seemed really cool. And while Ultravox was understood what I was saying, stopped speaking, and then adapted the response based on what I told it. It also supports custom voices. I use the default one, which is Mark. I think it's a very nice voice, but it has a ton of them in English and in many other languages, although you can use the voices to speak in several languages. Some other things it supports, which we're gonna see in the hands-on, it's about custom prompts as well. So like you do with GPT models or any other LLM, you can pass it a custom prompt to adopt a certain personality and to follow certain instructions. It supports retrieval augmented generation, both out of the box. They have a nice feature in their managed services that we're going to see. And you can also implement this by using tool calling. And by the way, for the ones who don't know, because I don't know the whole audience today, RAG is when you essentially retrieve information to augment the knowledge of your language model. So for example, your language model isn't trained in data from your company, and you might want to pass it some data from the company for it to generate an accurate answer. Voice cloning, this is also a really nice feature. This was the only way that I was able to make it speak in Portuguese from Portugal, because the voices they provided were not very good. So this seems to work quite well. It's also fine-tunable, and you can do this in two ways. The first one, and like Ultravox said, it's built on open source tech, so you can simply go to the Hugging Face hub and download the model. And if you have a data set, you can fine-tune it yourself, uh, assuming you have enough compute power. Or the other way is by contacting their sales team. Right now, they don't provide an endpoint in their API. I think it's something they are trying to do, but at the moment, you can just invoke an endpoint in the API to fine-tune the model, like you can do with some OpenAI's language models. And the last thing, like I referred as well, it's open source. So you can go to Hugging Face and check the weights. So now, before moving on with Ultravox, let's take kind of a step back and see how speech language models work. And for that, I'll start by showing you how the paradigm was until now for these conversational apps, which was essentially you had three different services. The first one is the ASR service that stands for automatic speech recognition and takes in speech and transcribes it to text. So if I said the quick brown fox jumps over, the ASR module would translate my speech to the text. Then that text is passed to a language model, and you can use whatever you like. It can be Llama or OpenAI's models, and it will generate a response. In this case, in this example, it's just doing a completion, but you can imagine it being conversational. And then that completion is sent to a TTS service, so a text-to-speech service that is going to pick up the text, and it's going to pass it on to audio. Now, end-to-end speech language models are multimodal models that do this in a slightly different way. So the speech is directly consumed by the language model because you use a speech tokenizer. So just like a text tokenizer that you use to process text, you also have speech tokenizers that you can use to process the speech and create tokens so that you can feed the language model. And of course, it can also accept text. That's why it's multimodal. Next, the language model as well does the completion, and then you have a vocoder, which is essentially the inverse of the speech tokenizer. So it will receive as input speech tokens, and it will create audio from those speech tokens. And so that's how very high levels speech language models work. Those two services are replaced by essentially a speech tokenizer and a vocoder. And you have the paper from the one that I took these images if you are interested in learning more about this. So Ultravox is not there just yet. And this is something that actually makes me a little bit sad because I'm starting to really enjoy Ultravox. So at the moment, Ultravox only has the leftmost part. So it can consume speech directly because it has that speech tokenizer component that can pick up my voice, split it up into tokens, into audio tokens, and pass it on to the language model, which will then output text. Okay, this is important. Ultravox does not output speech directly, only consumes speech directly. And that text is passed on to a text-to-speech component. In this case, Ultravox uses by default the 11 Labs TTS service, but they have some integrations with other TTS services if you want to use another one. Two phrases, by the way, that I took from one from their repo and another from their blog post, and I'm just going to quote. Ultravox currently takes in audio and emits streaming text. As we evolve the model, we'll train it to be able to emit a stream of speech tokens that can be converted directly into raw audio by an appropriate unit vocoder. So the idea is to replace that rightmost part of the TTS by that vocoder that I've shown you in the previous image. And they also said that, end quote, we've chosen to focus on a speech understanding problem first, as we think it's the biggest barrier to natural feeling interactions. So using the vocoder to have a speech language model end-to-end, it's on their roadmap, but their priorities were first about the speech understanding part, so the speech consumption and not the speech output. Another cool thing that they have in one of their blog posts is their roadmap. And I took it here. It's this image, essentially. They elaborate a little bit more in their blog post. But I think it's nice to see where they think these types of technologies are going. This is divided in 5 stages. And the first one is the assistant stage, where this is about legacy systems like, well, Siri or Alexa, in which they are not very conversational, but you can just give them an instruction and they will be able to execute it. Like, create a task for me to do my homework or something like that. And they will execute it. And they can talk back to you, but it's not a conversational thing. The second phase is the conversationalist phase, which is where they currently are. And in this phase, they have what it's called full duplex systems. So these are systems that take in audio and emit audio and can do this at the same time, just like we do when we are having a conversation. I can hear you and I can also speak with you. So I can do both simultaneously. And the next phase, so this is where they are, phase 2. And they aren't even at the end of phase 2 because of that last part of not having that vocoder. The third phase is the collaborator phase, in which the AI has the feature set of the first 2 phases, but it also can be in group conversations. So it can deal with group dynamics and be in a group conversation, not just talking to me, but imagine Ultravox having a conversation talking with all of us. And that's the third phase. The fourth phase is about the empathic communicator, which in this case, it has the full feature set of the first 3 phases, but can detect things like emotion or tone of the person that is speaking. So if I'm angry speaking with Ultravox, it will detect it and, well, it will adjust to soothe me, probably. And if I'm sad, it will probably try to cheer me up. And the last one is the organizer phase, in which the AI can, in a way, influence people and guide the conversation so that, I mean, it can, well, guide the conversation in the way it wants. So this is the last phase, and well, requires strategic thinking. And well, I don't know what's the time frame for this roadmap. The only thing I can say is that this was posted around November 2024, so it's pretty recent. I mean, around 6 months. Okay, now just this is, I promise you this is the last slide, and then we'll move on to the hands-on. But just to give you a little comparison between speech language models and the classic ASR plus LLM plus TTS pipeline, these are some advantages of using speech language models. The first one is that if you use that ASR plus LLM plus TTS pipeline, you'll get information loss during the conversion of the modalities. So the ASR component is going to pick audio and it's going to transform it to text, sorry. So you'll lose information about, for example, the way the user spoke, the tone it used, the emotion it had. Was the user angry? Was the user talking very slowly or very fast? That is something that you typically lose with the ASR component, for example. Another thing that you have is error accumulation. So since you have 3 different services, the error from one can influence the error of the other. So if the ASR component doesn't quite capture doesn't do a correct transcription, that's going to influence the LLM's response, and it will influence the TTS audio. Another one, which is very related with the first one, is the lack of paralinguistic information. So things like pitch, timbre, these are lost, and so, I mean, it's very similar to the first one. Another one is latency. So, and this is quite easy to see. If you are using that pipeline, you are using 3 different services. And if you are imagining you are using an Azure model for the ASR, OpenAI for the LLM, and 11 Labs for the TTS, you'll have to do 3 requests. And in a way, expect the first one to be responded, to invoke the second one, to invoke the third one, and you always have network latency. And the last one is about complexity. So if you are managing 3 services, it's going to be more complex than just managing one single model. Okay, and that's all from the slides. I'm just going to do a brief pause, 5 to 10 seconds, to see if there are any questions. If there aren't, I'll be moving on to the hands-on. Now, let me share my VS Code. Okay. I think you are seeing the VS Code. I cannot see you though. So I've created a simple demo using Ultravox managed services about a fictitious Data customer support voice bot. And I think the best way to start this is also to do it the same way that I've started the presentation, which is to call a phone number where that is communicating with my app, for just for you to see how this works, and then we will dive into the code, which is actually it's quite simple. So I'll take off my headphones. I won't be hearing you, but I think you'll be hearing me and Ultravox. Okay, so I'm calling.
Olá, obrigado por ligares para a ASR Data. Como te posso ajudar hoje?
Oh, sorry. Can you speak in Portuguese, in English, please?
We are happy to help you in English. So how can we assist you today?
Okay. First of all, I would like to know who are their data's founders.
We are founded by Nuno Braz, Ivo Bernardo, and Rui Figueiredo. They have a strong background in machine learning, data science, and software engineering, and they started the company to help organizations improve their
Okay. Thank you. That's okay. That's nice. So I was calling. Yeah, I was calling because actually I have a generative AI use case at my company, and I believe their data can help me solve it.
Well, that's great to hear. We'd be happy to help you with your generative AI use case. Can you tell me a bit more about what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so it's about essentially extracting data from PDFs and then standardizing that data to make some dashboards.
We do have experience with data extraction and standardization, and we've worked with PDFs before. That can be a challenging task, but we have some tools and techniques that can help. Would you like to speak with one of our sales experts to discuss how we can assist you with your specific use case?
Yeah, that would be lovely, please.
Before I transfer you to our sales team, can you please tell me your name?
Yeah, my name is Bruno.
Thank you, Bruno. I'm going to transfer you to our sales team now. They'll be able to discuss your generative AI use case and see how we can help you with extracting and standardizing data from PDFs.
Okay.
Hi, Bruno. My name is Mark, and I'm a sales expert here at Their Data. I understand you're looking to extract data from PDFs and standardize it to create some dashboards. That's a great use case for our generative AI technology, specifically our Gen OS product. Can you tell me a bit more about your current challenges and what you're hoping to achieve?
Okay, I'm going to end the call and stop here. This is how it's currently working, and now let's move on to the code. You're going to see that it's quite simple. I actually only have two Python files, this app.py, which has around 50 lines of code, and then this configuration.py, which has some configs that I'm sending to the Ultravox server. So to do this, I'm using Twilio. I've called to a Twilio phone number, and Twilio is essentially, well, a middleman that is going to receive the call and it's going to call this endpoint from my API so that it can then do the connection to the Ultravox server. So the first thing Twilio does is to invoke this incoming call endpoint. And what it does is to create an Ultravox call. And this function, let me close this. This function will invoke the Ultravox server. I'm defining here some headers where I pass on the Ultravox API key. And then I do a post request to this API URL. I can show you. It's this URL here. And I pass on the headers as well. And if the response is successful, it will contain a join URL. So the way Ultravox works is you make it a request for it to initialize a call, and it will give you back a join URL. And you can use that join URL to join the call. If you don't join, the call is ended in, I think the default is 5 seconds, but you can change that default. So with that join URL, I'm going to, well, I actually use Twilio's SDK, and I'm creating this voice response and this connect instances. And then I'm going to show you what this does. And then I'm using this connect instance, and I'm calling the stream method and passing on the join URL. So essentially, I am saying Twilio to forward the call to this URL in a way, so that it can talk with Ultravox. and then I append that to the response, and I return an HTML response. And to show you what this does in practice, so if I go to this endpoint, it will just return this to Twilio. This is Twilio markup language, so it knows how to read this. In a way, it understands that this is a response, so I'm giving it a response, and I want it to connect to this specific stream. And this is the URL that Ultravox provided. In this case, it created an URL for a call, but I haven't joined, so it's going to cancel the call. And then I have another endpoint, which is this forward endpoint that I'm using when the call is, well, transferred. In this case, it's just, I mean, I'm changing the voice to simulate it's a transferred call, but it's just Ultravox. And I'm passing on some different settings, which I'm going to show you now. So this is all for the Fast API app. And then the configuration, it's also quite simple. I'm defining here some environment variables like the API key, the API URL. But the two main ones are these Ultravox root settings and the Ultravox sales settings. And this is a payload that you send to Ultravox so the server can understand what you want. And the first thing is the system prompt, which I have in this prompts folder. You can, well, I'm not going to read it to you, at least the whole thing, but I'm just saying to it that it's an employee of their data taking care of customer support. I tell it what their data is, just a few sentences. I tell it to speak slowly. And then this is a cool part. Ultravox, in this case, has access to two tools. Ultravox, I mean, this particular instance. One is the query corpus. This is, I don't know if you remember me telling you at the start of the session that Ultravox supports RAG out of the box. And this is how they do it. They have this tool, the query corpus, which I'm going to show you in their UI just in a few moments. But it essentially, it crawls a specific website that you want or specific pages and chunks and embeds everything. So you can just talk with that data. It's not transparent on how it does it, but to do some demos, it's really handy. And the next one is the tool to transfer the voice call to the sales team. And in this case, I'm asking it to ask the user's name, to tell the user that it's going to transfer them to the sales team once it has this information, and then uses that transfer call to sales tool to, well, transfer the call. Okay, this is the prompt that I'm sending it. I'm also specifying the medium, which in this case it's Twilio. They have integrations with other providers. So, I mean, I think they have Telnix and two more, if I'm not mistaken. I'm also passing on a voice that I want. I was using a Portuguese voice, so you saw that in English, or you heard in this case that in English it was not very good, but you can also change the voice for a native English voice. You define the temperature. This is like in language models, in a way, the creativity it has. So in this case, I'm putting it to 0 to stick to the facts that I'm giving it. Then I'm passing on these voice activity detection settings. This contains the activation threshold, which is, in a way, the amount of noise it handles. So if you are in a very noisy environment, you can increase this threshold so it can filter out the noise. Otherwise, it will hear something, it will think you are speaking, and so it will just shut up, which is not what you want if you are in a noisy environment. And this turn endpoint delay it's just a delay from the moment it understands you stopped speaking, from the moment it starts to speak. In this case, I'm putting it to 192 seconds. But if it's someone that talks slowly, you may want to increase this value. I'm also passing on this first speaker setting. They have a lot of settings. I'm just covering the main ones. And in this one, I'm telling it that the first speaker is the agent, so Ultravox, and it's going to play uninterruptible audio. And in this case, it's going to say, Olá, obrigado por ligares para a Data, como posso ajudar hoje? And well, if you want the conversation to start with a certain phrase, you can just use this parameter. And then I have the selected tools. So these are the tools that I was talking to you about, the query corpus, which I'm going to show you in the UI in just a few minutes. And it needs a corpus ID to know which corpus to use to answer the questions. And the number of maximum results, in this case, 3. And another tool, which is the forward call to sales. In this tool, it has a description, so I'm telling it what the tool is for, which is to transfer the call to the sales team. And I'm passing on the URL it should call to forward the call. So as you can see, this forward endpoint maps to this forward. And it's a get method. You can use a post method for more complicated stuff. You can pass on query parameters and a JSON body if you want. So it can invoke, I think, almost all HTTP endpoints. And you can also pass on authentication if needed. I don't know if they support everything, but the most common, I think they do, like the bearer token, the OAuth 2 authentication. So they have all of that. I've never tested them. Okay, and then to finish up, I have this Ultravox sales settings. That's what I'm passing here in the forward endpoint. So when the call is transferred to sales, it is going to assume these settings. And these are much smaller. I'm passing on a new system prompt, which is the sales prompt. So it's a friendly AI, it's a sales expert. You should speak slowly, try to sell them our latest product, GenOS, and this is a voice call. So I pass on a prompt, I pass on the voice that I want, in this case, Mark. The selected tools, it has not any tools, but I could pass on the tools that I wanted. And this tool result text it's just to know the result of calling the forward tool, the forward call to sales. Okay, and this is a helper function just to read the prompts. This is it about the code. So it's really simple. It's mainly about defining the correct payload to send to Ultravox, and then in a way fine-tuning your prompt so that it can behave the way you want. Okay, I think I'll do just one more 5-second to 10-second pause to see if there are any questions. If there aren't, I'll move on to the Ultravox UI, so you can see their UI page. Okay. This is what they have. So at the start, they have just 2 simple dashboards, one to show you the total time and calls that you've made. So it's the number of calls I've made and the total time I spoke with Ultravox. And you have this bar/line chart here. You also have the calls made versus joined. So that thing that I told you that you may create a call, but you might not enter it. So that's a call made, but not a call joined. And you also have the live calls that are happening right now. None is happening. They have this maximum of 5, but from what I gathered from their Discord channel, they can increase this as much as you want, but you have to talk with their sales team. And the number of errors that happen in the last 24 hours. This agents tab is something that I haven't explored yet. This is a new feature. I think they've sent an email about this maybe maximum 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. So it's very recent, and I haven't tested it yet. They have a playground in which you can, well, select a voice that you want. They have 2 Portuguese voices. They have Paulo, which is not a very good voice. Tiago is kind of okay, but it was added very recently. Portuguese from Portugal. They also have others from Brazilian Portuguese. And you can pass on a custom prompt and test your settings. So you can just speak with it to see how it responds. Now, this RAG thing that I was talking to you about, this is their out-of-the-box way for you to do RAG. In this case, I created a collection named Their Data, and, well, let me show you. I've said to it that I wanted it to crawl 2 websites, the Their Data AI /about page and the /success stories. So when you make questions about their data, for it to know how to respond, like who the founders are, it will see the documents that are in this corpus in order to answer to you. In this case, it created 142 documents, 280 chunks, and 1,484 vectors. This is, like I said to you, this is a complete black box, so I don't know how they are doing this. They just do it, and it's, like I said, it's very nice for doing some demos. And just to show you, for the sake of completeness, how you can do this, it's very simple. You can use the UI or you can use the API, but if you click on create new source, you can select an existing collection or create a new one. You pass it on a name, you pass it on a description, and then for that specific collection, you're going to add a new source. So, I mean, imagine this is about, I don't know, finances, and you want the collection from Autoridade Tributária, and then another one from the, I don't know, for another entity. So you can pass on several sources, pass on the description. You can pass on the URLs that you wanted to search for. And you can also define the crawl depth, which is the number of links it will follow from those starting pages. So it's like I said, it's really handy. And then it takes a few minutes and the status gets ready and you can use that corpus. And to use that corpus, you have, like I told you, this query corpus tool that they provide out of the box. So it's also really handy. And they have another 2 tools, the Play DTMF Sounds and the Hangup. I've never used them, so I don't know how well they work. Okay. Then you have the Voices tab, in which you have all the voices here, and you can play a sample to hear the voice. And you have the clone voices. In this case, I've cloned the voice of Tânia Graça, which is a Portuguese psychologist. I don't think I can use this for production applications, but for demos, I think it's okay. And it works quite well in Portuguese from Portugal. And like everything in Ultravox, it's very easy to use. You can just click on Generate New Voice. You pass it on an audio file, maximum 60 seconds. The recommendation is between 30 to 60 seconds. clear audio, otherwise it won't work very well. You pass it on a name and a description, and it generates the voice. You can also do it using their API, but if you have a file, it's just simple to drag it here. And like the number of concurrent calls, they just give you one custom voice per account. But if you contact their sales team, I think they are more than okay in giving you more custom voices, at least from what I've discovered in their Discord server. I've been digging that actually. And the last tab is the call history. So in our case, I've made this call at 5:55. So I'm going just to click on it. It has some nice information as well. It has the reason why the call ended, if the recording is enabled or not, start and end times, total duration, and a summary of what happened. So I called to explore how their data's technology could help me with a generative AI use case. And then you have a high-level view of the call. So the call started here, and I entered the first stage, which was with the voice from Tanya. It started at this specific time, and with this system prompt, which was the one that I was showing you. And this stage had these two available tools, so the query corpus and the forward call to sales. And then I moved on to a new stage, which was when Ultravox called the forward call to sales. And so I went to stage 2, in which the voice is not here because I think it's the default voice, which is Mark, the start time, and the system prompt. And then the call ended. You can actually see this in more detail if you click on View Stage Log. So you can see that the first speaker was the agent, and it said this. And then I spoke something that it's not here in the transcript, not sure why, but you can click on this button to hear what the user has said, the literal audio. And then the agent spoke, and then I asked about their data's founders. And so what it did, it was invoke this query corpus tool with this specific query, their data founders. And it retrieved 3 results from that corpus. So 1, 2, 3, because I set the maximum number of results should be 3. And it answered based on that information. And then the conversation went, you heard it, and then here, this was the last thing it did, which was to call the forward call to sales. And then it moved on to the other stage. Okay, and I think that's it.